temperatures could get as low as -15 to -20 Celsius.
So I've just looked at the forecast for tomorrow night, and unbelievably, it's showing on the BBC forecast for the north of England and Scotland -15 to -20, which is incredibly cold. And even if we don't get anywhere near those temperatures, it's going to get lower than -5. We could get -10, which will be the coldest we've ever experienced. Well, in my garden here, I've had -10 at a previous garden, but not the last 12, 13 years. So if you get those sort of temperatures, it's when plants will struggle and some could die. And I've had lots of people asking, am I worried about plants and the snow and the ice we've been having this winter so far? And it is variable where you are in the country. Some people down south have had it pretty mild, they might have the odd snow flurry, but nothing too bad, and certainly no real cold temperatures. But this is a time to worry if you forecast, -7, -8, -9, -10, or even lower. If you forecast that, now is the time to act if you haven't already really protected your plants. It's not too late. If you can get out, it's not great to do that. Like now what is it? It is, it's nearly 8:30 on an evening. It's dark. It's already freezing outside, so it's not the best time to be going out in the garden trying to protect plants. But if you haven't already done so, you have to really do it now, or plants will really, really suffer if you get temperatures, getting close to -10 or even lower. I've got, with many plants surviving, -7.7 has been the absolute lowest for a short time on a couple of winters here. But if you're going to get lower than that, plants will really suffer. Even plants that might be hardy 9 winters out of 10, so my bootias might suffer as well if we get down to -9, -10 degrees. I'm not saying we'll definitely get those temperatures, because normally those temperatures that the forecast to be that low is normally where you've got snowfall and you've got lying snow and you've got those radiation frosts and really, really cold nights over the snow fields. Now here we have still got lots of snow in the fields behind our house, although a lot of the snow has melted off the garden itself today, but it could still drop really cold. I'm expecting, personally, I'm guessing we'll get about -7, -8, which will be too much for certain things. I will protect some plants tonight. My Phoenix canariensis, it's not easy to protect, it's quite big, but I'll try to wrap that up. So when you see temperatures in your area, even if it's not tonight, even if it's not in this winter, but in future winters, if you see a forecast of -7, -8, that is when you really got to protect plants if you've got those borderline plants. Anything down to -5 for the majority of what we call half-hardy-ish plants are normally fine. So Dixonia, Antarcticas, your Phoenix canariensis of a decent size as well. Washingtonias in some areas, -3, -4, you're fine, but any lower and it causes a lot of damage. As soon as you get forecasts -6 to -10, it's definitely worth acting if you want to protect those plants and keep them going. So I'll be doing that. Like I said, I'm not certain we'll get those low temperatures, but if you forecast it, chances are it's going to be cold, so it's worth protecting plants. Now, if you don't want the stress, anxiety of thinking, will my plants survive? Obviously, you don't have to grow these very sort of borderline plants, or you can move to somewhere warmer, inner city London, the coast, where you don't really get temperatures down to -8 or lower. But for most of us that don't live in the city centre of London or on the south coast, then we're going to get really cold temperatures every so often. It might be once every 20 years, it might be once every 5 years, depending where you live. But everywhere, if you look at the records, everywhere has pretty much had -10 or lower in the last 50 years. So the chances are it could happen again, even with overall warming temperatures for the world. The UK, it's variable. Most of the time, it's totally fine, mild, benign winters, but we do get those especially cold winters from time to time. And although this might not carry on, it might only be one night or 2 nights where it gets down to -7, -10 degrees, or as forecast over the snowfields in northern England and Scotland, down to -20. that damage, that temperatures can cause freeze damage on leaves. So even if it doesn't kill the plants directly, it might kill off a lot of the foliage of some of the hardy palms and other plants in the garden as well. And it can really freeze through the ground if it doesn't warm up over the next few days, because it's been around 0 to 2 degrees for the last 4 or 5 days here, and that will continue definitely until the weekend, if not longer, because the temperatures aren't looking to rise too much here. And that's such a contrast to sort of the south of the country and the Midlands, where it's been quite benign. It's been sort of 5 to 10 degrees, even warmer a couple of days ago when we were getting all the snow up north. So it really is variable. But flip that, was it 3 or 4 years ago? The south got absolutely clobbered with areas getting down to -10, loads of snow and ice, and the north didn't really get a bad winter at all. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. So it can flip and slide. It's not just the north versus the south. Obviously, the coast is normally warmer and the west is normally warmer than the east. But anywhere in the UK really can get these cold, prolonged periods of cold, especially if you've got snow on the ground. So I'm going to go out now, check my plants, and obviously I'll report back at the weekend, see if there's any instant damage seen. Did we really get those cold temperatures? You'll see that in an upcoming video. But now, like I said, it's gone 8:30. I'm going to get out there and protect some plants. If you don't want to be in this position, obviously you can protect your plants at the start of winter in November or something like that, and protects a lot of your plants. But you don't want to give too much protection too early if you get a mild winter. So it is a balancing act. You don't want plants to get warm and sweat, especially palms really don't like being wrapped up for too long if it's not cold. If it's cold for a long winter, then wrap them up like they do in the US and Central Europe. But because most of us are growing in the UK or Northern Europe, where most of the time it's not really cold, we get some damp, we get some benign weather where it's mild, wrapping plants up for ages and ages when it's those sort of conditions means you can get rot. So it's hard to tell because we're on that border between sort of benign weather, the odd dip down or the odd warmer period over winter. You have to be really careful about protecting plants for too long. So reacting to the forecast probably is the only way to go, or growing super hardy plants that you don't need to worry about. But as most of us like to push the boundaries, grow sort of exotic plants on the edge, then things like this, going out at night, especially if you've been at work all day, not ideal, but it just goes with the territory of growing sort of half-hardy exotic plants in locations like this. Right, enough talking. It's time to get outside, check the plants, and I'll report back at the weekend.